stop over glamorizing what we're doing, because this takes so much work and effort. And trying to launch a company, whether you're a solo founder or even a small team, is like a lonely place. When it gets over glamorized, it paints like a false narrative of what's going on. And I think we should all just be, instead, just really honest with ourselves.
True.
And honest with others that, like, yeah, this sucks. You know, it kind of goes back to this idea of authenticity. Conveniently, this week, Webster's dictionary came out and said authenticity is the word of the year.
James, thanks for coming on the podcast.
My pleasure.
It's kind of fun to do this in person. Don't get to do that often. But,
Agreed. I didn't want to do a one over Zoom. I wanted to, have the energy.
Press the flesh. And,
people in the room.
We got a celeb guest appearance.
We do. I'm here. I'm in Philly. I had to come see my man Azar. He's an Eagles fan. There is no way I wasn't going to come on this
What team
podcast.
do you root for?
Yeah, I think everybody knows that. That's a silly question, but we have our first other official Eagles fan on the podcast today, so it's the most important component of our podcast today.
Period.
So, Azar, why don't you spend a minute and tell everybody what you think about Tom Brady and the Patriots?
I can't say that on the record. Maybe after a couple of beers downtown we could. Maybe not today.
Yeah.
Well, if we're not going to start with Tom Brady, maybe start with who you are, Reservoir, what you're doing.
Yeah, so I am launching Reservoir. It's a credentialing platform, and we're trying to transform the way that organizations recognize, authenticate, and trust an individual's qualifications. I've been working on it for the past 18, maybe 20 months. About halfway through my fundraise, and looking forward to closing that out very soon and start building some product.
It's a fun. I've been on the journey like from super early on idea fundraising and like making it come to life, but it's cool to see how quickly you've been going on that progress. One of the things I wanted to actually ask, you have maybe a slightly non-traditional path for doing a startup, but you also have a lot of traction so far in terms of your fundraising, pitching, and winning competitions, which we'll get into. Going through business school and going through that journey and then doing a startup afterwards, obviously you haven't done the alternative, but how would you say that business school has shaped your fundraising, your startup experience, positively as well as negatively?
And talk about your experience as well. I mean, you have 11 years in an industry, which is also pretty impressive. I mean, a lot of the folks that we talk to in their early stage journeys don't nearly have as much experience as what I think you have with your journey prior to going into business.
Well, I can give a little background. So originally from the area, from Philadelphia, went to Drexel right here in town.
Hell yeah!
That's where
Dragons.
Yeah, that's where we met. Obviously, same social circles. Took an engineering track, but I think it was halfway through my studies that I realized I didn't want to be an engineer. I just, grew up in a big Italian family. I'm a talker. I couldn't be behind a desk. I wanted to work with people more face to face, more hands on.
Talking to you is not work with your hands.
Exactly. Yeah, I know my way around. I could take care of some blue collar work. It's not an issue at all. Anyway, after a few internships, I found my way to SAP, which is one of the largest, if not the largest, software company in the world, enterprise software, and ultimately spent about 8 years there, working, anywhere from in their, starting out in their partnerships team, to ultimately carrying a sales bag and covering accounts like Apple and Toyota and Honda and a few other kind of household brands, Restoration Hardware, Williams-Sonoma, etc. Really enjoyed that experience, and I was out in San Francisco as well for that gig for a while. And it was around maybe year 8 that I wanted to see something a little bit different. So I actually left San Francisco, moved back to the Northeast, went to New York and worked for a company called Celonis. It was the pioneer in a new technology called process mining that was helping organizations, large and small, really just drive process efficiency for their businesses. That was a great experience. Was there for about a year, ultimately left and went to another mid-cap company. It was called Yext. It is called.
I didn't know you worked at Yext.
Yeah. So
one of our other good friends is there, Greg Goldberg.
Yeah. Greg Goldberg helped me get the job there. Yeah, he positioned me for an interview. He's a great guy. But spent 2 years there, and conveniently was selling very nice to have software to healthcare systems in the Northeast region of the United States during the largest public health crisis in a century, which was a wild experience. And I think COVID, probably like many other people, you rethink your life, your approach. What are you doing? And am I delivering value? Am I achieving my purpose? All these things. And I thought, hey, let me take a minute. I've just been working for 10 years. Let me go back to B school and figure something out. It ended up being the journey to business school was where I came up with the idea for Reservoir.
Yeah, that's awesome. How long were you in San Francisco?
I was in SF for just shy of 2 years.
And when did you move there? What year?
I moved there in, I believe it was late 2017.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we were there, obviously, right?
I think I left 2016, 2017, but paths could have crossed. And
Yeah, I was in North Beach for the
Hopefully
first year.
Okay.
There was like this killer focaccia place right on the corner.
Yeah.
They would like cash only, real old school. They've been there 100 years. They would sell out by like 8, 9 in the morning. It was great. And then the second year I was in Pack Heights, which was good. It wasn't my city. It wasn't for me.
Yeah.
I like a little bit more intensity.
Yeah.
So,
shitty East Coast weather and relentless workaholics. That's your vibe?
yeah, and like, people have a little bit of an edge to them.
Yeah.
So naturally, Philly guy goes to New York, I guess. Yeah.
So I want to keep the B school journey, the startup journey going forward. Maybe though, just to like frame that process of midlife crisis or quarter life crisis or whatever you want to call it, or like what I'm doing right now is not fulfilling me deeply enough. How did you get from maybe that state of dissatisfaction or knowing that what you were doing was not what you wanted to keep doing to, okay, business school, that's what I want to do? Like, how did you get to that decision?
Yeah, it's a great question. So a good buddy of mine, we were working at Salonis together. We actually worked at SAP together, both in San Francisco. We had no idea. Only once we got to New York, we realized we worked at the same company prior. So we were at Salonis together. We both left together as well, right around the same time. I landed at Yaxton. I think it was at that time, if I remember correctly, he was trying to take his journey to business school. So I always saw him kind of, studying and putting in the work to, land a great GMAT score and tighten up his essays and whatnot. And it always kind of planted a seed in my head of like, hey, maybe there is, maybe that is a path one day for me. But I didn't think of it at the time. I was, still had a great sales career. I was still making money and it wasn't the right choice for me. But then he ultimately got into a great program and honestly, it kind of inspired me a bit. At the same time, the world's shutting down, and I'm trying to sell software to hospitals who are trying to buy PPE and ventilators and all this stuff, and I'm like, it just doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel like this is why James is on the planet. It didn't. So I kind of was like, hey, let me kind of scratch this itch that was planted 6-8 months prior, and that was it.
And was it the B school itch, or did you know at that point that you?
Well, I knew I wanted to do something different, but I had no idea what the hell it was. I mean, I knew what I wanted to do. I had an idea of what I wanted to do, but the way I felt like I can transition from enterprise software seller to that future role, I needed something as the segue. And, I don't know what the stat is, but a majority of folks go to B school to pivot. So
Interesting.
That's why I was going.
I think there's a lot of truth in that too. I mean, Rich and I have experienced it in numerous different ways, but typically if you want to get somewhere, the direct linear path isn't always the best, whether it's like for your own cognitive biases or your own resistance, or you need to build up skills to kind of get there, build up the credibility, the story of self. And often having clarity of I want to move in this direction, or I want to move away from this direction. And then, well, what's a step that I can take? It doesn't have to be the best step, the most immediate, the most direct, but taking any step to get you in that direction is progress.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like my journey is, it's certainly not linear. It honestly looks like a bowl of spaghetti at this point with all the different like experiences I've had, where I've lived, where I've worked, the types of problems I've solved for clients, and then compound that with my education and the things that just excite me. I've been all over the place. So, but where I'm at right now. I'm so excited to take this journey and really try to make a positive impact.
So where are you right now?
Be more specific.
So you finished B school, right?
I finished B school. I graduated this past May.
You kind of locked in an idea, which we'll come back to, like how did you even land on this idea? But in your startup journey, in your entrepreneurial journey, like where are you right now?
Yeah, so I'm full-time fundraiser, marketer, seller, product designer,
Product manager,
CFO, head of accounting. I mean, right? I'm a solo founder, so I'm like everyone says, you wear many hats. I think you actually wear all the hats. That's where I'm at. But majority of my time right now is focused on continuing to try to build awareness with clients while in parallel fundraising.
I think that is a very underappreciated aspect of early entrepreneurship, which is, you said, building rapport with clients. And then fundraising, which both of those are sales. And I think very often people think of, particularly tech startups, and they say, oh, it's about building a product. And then once I build the best product, I'm going to get it to market. And then we'll sell it at some point, but it'll be so amazing. Everyone will love it. But early on, to breathe life into a company, it's about sales. It's about building relationships, building rapport, whether that's selling to investors so that they have the confidence in you and the product, as well as kind of lining up customers before you even have a fully built out product. So that when you do have that product, you're able to take it to the next level. You're able to actually deliver value. So I think it's cool that your focus is like dialed on the most important. It's not necessarily the sexiest or the most fun work.
Fucking dialed in, excuse my language. My focus is fully dialed in on that. The challenge is, it's like, I wish there was 10 of me because there's always just so much to do, which is great. But I always kind of go back to this one thing that one of my sales managers said, and whether it's true or not, it was always like, activity doesn't necessarily mean progress. You can have a hell of a lot of meetings with the client, but if you're not moving a deal forward, then, I don't care that you had a good call, right? How does that actually translate into momentum? So, it's hard or difficult because, you see what you're doing every day, and it's hard to actually see the momentum, right? Because you could plant the seeds, in May, and that might not grow until January, and you can't just sit and watch it. You just have to like keep moving forward, keep doing other things, and maybe something grows from it, maybe it doesn't. But that's one thing that I'm trying to, what's the word, cope with, of like, it's not that I want this to move faster. I know all this takes time, but it's more of like, you're running in so many different directions so fast to accomplish your goal, and you're just trying to like kind of hang on.
Yeah, just trying to keep one foot in front of the other.
That's it. Like a little bit of momentum every single day. The one thing I talked to my good friend Mike about is like, you're just like living long enough to just fight another day.
That's all it's about. And it's all about survival. I mean, we talk about this all the time. I mean, like, value creation, like you're saying, it doesn't matter how much you do, how much activity you have. The thing you want is the end result and what that value creation is. And sometimes that's hard to track. It's hard to see. Like, this whole journey, this whole game is resilience. It's about not quitting. Every day you wake up, you're going to have high highs, you're going to have low lows. The person who wins is the person who never quits. Yep. And some people, like we all, high achievers, we want to achieve the journey tomorrow. And sometimes you lose a little bit focus that, like, at least for me anyways, that you have to reset and say it's about the journey. It's about the moments, because all this is just not quitting. Every single day you wake up, not quitting. And if you never quit, you'll never lose. Yeah. And that just takes a lot of resilience. And I mean, it's the journey.
You got to be relentless.
You have to be relentless.
And interesting, I don't know if you ever went to relentless.com. It navigates to Amazon.
Really?
It does, yeah.
That's
his relentless pursuit to deliver like the superior customer experience was like always his guiding light.
Yeah.
So I always felt that interesting. But the piece about like resilience and like being persistent and just like keep moving forward, that's like, not to be arrogant, but like I think that's why we're gonna win.
Yeah.
Is because you know, there's certainly people out there that are smarter, brighter, more accomplished than me,
100%.
but like I'm not gonna be out hustled.
Yeah.
At least by people in this space.
And that's the thing you
At
can
my
control.
stage.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that, you know, I'm gonna come in here and beat Microsoft at their own
Right.
game, but you know, if people are entrusting me with their capital, you know, I will not be outworked. I will not be out hustled. It's just what it is. And you know, as a Philly boy, okay, I think that is a Philly mentality.
It is.
It is a, you know, it was one of the
Flyers mascot.
well, gritty.
Grit.
Hell yeah,
Yep.
good call.
Yep.
But you got Bryce Harper after, I don't know if it was one of the NLDS wins or whatever it was, but he just talks about the Philly mentality,
Yeah.
that chip on your shoulder,
There's a chip on the shoulder.
blue
Most systems say
collar,
that.
you fight for everything in the city.
100%.
And that mentality from growing up here is just like, has always been my North Star.
Yeah. I'm
Always
getting
been my
chills,
North
man.
Star.
I mean, it's the same situation. I mean, I remember walking into Goldman on my first day, and I knew I wasn't the smartest one in the room. But, you know, like the thing that I always grew up with, that mentality is like, control the things you can control. And the thing I always told myself is, no one's ever going to outwork me. I'm going to be the hardest working person in this fucking room. And, you know, that's the mentality you have to have if you want to win. And I truly believe if you control the things that you control, you will win. And maybe it takes a little bit more time, but like that's what comes down to resilient and the chip on the shoulder. That's where it comes from, because I know you're not going to outwork me. And that's the mentality that we have. And those are the people you look for as an investor. Like we're now getting into the other side of the world. We've been doing Matter for 7 years, and now we're starting to invest and build our portfolio companies, and we're looking at raising a fund. And for us, like, you know, everybody always talks about the founder, the person behind the company, whatever company it is. Like that is the most important component.
Investing in the person in the team. Not
If you have
Yeah.
that, which is the number one most important thing, and product market fit, that's a good investment. And most of the time, even you can take that person and they will find product market fit because of their resilience and what they're willing to put into it.
Yeah.
You know? And that's why I love being from Philly, man. I mean, that's what we're all about.
Love it.
hustle
Love
mindset.
it. Yeah, man. It always comes up, right? Like hungry dogs run faster. You got, it's always just like the theme. I mean, even, you know, just like this Eagles season this year. I mean, we just like, you see Jalen Hurts
We're a
after
fucking 3-point underdog going against the Niners, and we're 10-1. And they're coming into our home stadium, which I'll be there, by the way.
people
Like,
out of their minds.
I mean, come on. But we love that shit. Like,
Yeah.
I feed off that shit. The team's feeding off that shit right now.
100%.
Like, that's the position we want to be in.
100%. Every day you wake up and you go to work. You go to work, you go to work, you go to work. And, you know, who wants to be comfortable, right?
Yeah.
You need something pushing you every single day to get your ass out of bed, go to work, make something happen, and deliver. And, you know, people always are like, you know, Jalen, why aren't you smiling at the press conference and whatnot? He's like, you know, I'm still work to do, right?
work to do.
It's Kobe's press conference after, what was
Exactly.
it?
Yeah.
Up
Job's
to
not done.
or yeah, job
Job's not
finished?
finished.
Job finished?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Job's not finished. It's just the way it is. And also, Philly boy, Kobe.
I want to come back to one thing before you shift it
course.
to Reservoir and how that idea came up. But you mentioned this concept of being uncomfortable, right? And this is something I've struggled a lot with in this part of my journey of like learning how to sit in the uncomfortability and
Embrace
deal
the
with
suck.
it, embrace it, the suck almost in a sense, but really this uncomfortable feeling. Like, what do you do? I mean, how do you deal with the components of being uncomfortable? I mean, is there an outlet you have, or
Now that I have. That's a good question. I don't know. This feeling of like discomfort, I feel like I've had my whole life. I mean, I grew up
Exactly.
Italian, right? I mean, you go to a dinner table, everyone's yelling and screaming. You overcook the pasta. It's like the whole.
yeah?
It's the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's just life.
Do you think you thrive in that? Do you think it gives you a push, or do you think
Oh, I feel like I thrive in chaos.
Yeah,
You know, I like the reason I feel like I thrive in chaos is if I'm like trying to make one dish on the stove, right? Like one pot on one burn on the stove, I'll probably overcook it. I'll probably burn it. I'll probably like screw something up. But if I've got 4 different things on 4 different, you know, stoves, all doing different things at different times, one's on a simmer, one's on, you know, basting with butter, another thing's getting seared, etc. that'll be a flawless meal.
Yeah.
And there's something for me, I don't know, maybe I'm different. Like being able to focus on more things at once allows me to be more productive. If I had like a stacked class schedule at school, I knew I was getting all my shit done.
Yeah.
But the semester I took maybe it easy a little bit, or one of the modules that I took easy where I had a light schedule, I wasn't performing as well. So there's something about just having more stuff on my plate, more meetings every week, more activity, more things to do. I just feel my output, not only the amount of output, but the quality of output is greater.
Yeah, I resonate with that. I mean, I feel like, I don't know if this is the same way for you, but just we continue to take so much more on our plates because I think we thrive with that. But sometimes for me, I think I hit my breaking point where I get to the point where I feel like I have the entire weight of the world on my shoulders. Like, you know, you just bit off too much, more than you can chew, right?
There's a book I was reading recently, or rereading, The Way of the Superior Man. But one of the things that it talks about is you need to find your edge, and then you need to lean past your edge. And it's a balance between leaning beyond your capacity, leaning beyond your current workability, leaning beyond your current skills, but not so far that you're falling off the edge. But life is lived when you are just past your edge, you're just past your comfort zone, you're like, and that is where that kind of too much on your plate, you know, biting off more than you can chew. That's what growth is about.
I think that's where 100%.
I mean, shit, I haven't had a paycheck in 2.5 years. I'm in the middle of a funding round, living in New York City, trying to figure things out. And like, what if that doesn't drive you? Then I don't know what the hell. I don't know what the hell will. So I'm right there with you.
Let's come back to Reservoir.
Yeah.
So I would love to hear more about the story of, you know, the idea, what in business school led to it. I know maybe it's changed a little bit. Like, talk to us about that.
Yeah. So the whole concept of Reservoir came up because when I was applying to business school, you know, this was before I got to school, when I was in the middle of the application process, again, we're in the middle of COVID. So you got registrar's office at university shut down. Now I needed to send my transcript to schools. I applied to 10 schools. After trying to get in touch with, you know, our alma mater, you know, a dozen times, I ended up having to go through the National Student Clearinghouse. And based on the sheer volume of schools I applied to, I spent nearly $1,000 trying to send all these transcripts.
Just having an official piece of paper sent from one entity to another.
Exactly. Wow. Now there's solutions that exist in the market, like, you know, Parchment and some other ones that if Drexel happened to be a participant or a customer of Parchment, that could get sent to another Parchment client. So that would have created some efficiency there, but that didn't exist at the time. So I spent nearly $1,000 just kind of going through this old archaic process with this data broker for something I already spent, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars on. Like, why am I being taxed again? It just makes no sense. I mean, I earned that degree, right? Like, we can go to Lululemon right now, get a t-shirt, and get a digital receipt. You know, I can buy a Hyundai now on Amazon.com. Like, why can I not just have digital proof of this thing I've earned? So that just like stuck with me, bothered me. Also the challenge of it is when they would send that transcript to these other institutions, they attach a certificate to it that would expire after 3 weeks.
Interesting.
So
what's the benefit of that, do you think? Or why?
Because then you have to come back to them and they own the process.
Bullseye. Yeah. So here I am trying to get into these great business schools, and I'm calling their admissions office. Hey, did you open my application yet? Can you do it within the next 2 weeks? Because I'm not trying to get taxed again. And then, you know, then I look desperate. So there was 3 schools that I had to resend transcripts to.
No way.
And it was just, honestly, it was bullshit. Not only from an economic perspective, but also from, you know, spending 10 years in enterprise software. I'm like, the hell's going on here? Like, well, why is that? We've been talking about digital transformation for it seems like ever now.
Buzzword.
Why is this still happening? Right? So I get to business school, and you know, I meet a buddy of mine, and at the time he was kind of you know, really into crypto and blockchain and NFTs, and for me personally, that's not really my speed. You know, nothing against it. I just not for me. Yeah. But we had this concept at the time saying, well, maybe we could do like an NFT diploma, something like that, right? We use it for the verification, the smart contract, the this, the that, and that ultimately, you know, led us to working with the university and saying, look, we have this concept of this digital diploma, this digital certificate, whatever, and we want to explore it. And being a higher education, not really the most innovative of industries, usually not a first mover, versus maybe some other industries. And instead of kind of going to them with this more grand proposition, we said, look, what if we just did something fun? There's NFTs everywhere. The largest brands in the world are doing it, whether you're Louis Vuitton or Nike or, merchandise from a Super Bowl. Let's do something fun and different and cool for the graduating class. And we got connected with the dean of the undergraduate business school, Patricia Grant, and she was and is awesome. She was like the first champion of Reservoir, and she was great. So she said, yeah, I love it. Let's do it. So we issued commemorative NFTs to the full graduating class. And the students loved it. It was also, like I said, very timely. A lot of brands are doing it, etc. So it was great. But it wasn't a business. It was something cool that we did. It was digital swag. And so, it was at this time that summer internships were happening between year 1 and year 2 for MBAs. And I thought, look, I really want to see if I can take this concept and fold it into not only what's happening in the world of the, rampant spread of fraud and disinformation with data, compounded with these data brokers and aggregators who just gatekeep our information, with my enterprise software experience to say, how can software drive a better outcome for not only me as like the recipient of this diploma back in the day, but also, other parties as well. So spent the summer working on it and thinking and whatnot, and probably doing more research than anything. I really wanted to build a broader perspective of what is just going on in the market, and where's the gap, and if there is a gap, what's the size of that gap, and how can technology address it. So after working on that for maybe 6 or 7 months, really came to the conclusion, which is where Reservoir is today and what we're trying to solve. You've got so many competing things that are happening in the market. So you've got this wild spread of disinformation. 55% of Americans admit to lying on their resume about either their education or their work experience. Frankly, it's easy to do so. We can put whatever we want on a resume. We can create a fake LinkedIn account. I didn't even need to go to Georgetown. I could have just bullshitted and said I went to HBS.
Yeah.
I could put whatever I want on Career Builder, Indeed. There's no fact checking. There's no verification. There's no nothing. It's all an honor system.
Yeah.
And to be clear, it's on honor system, and then it's typically on honor system through the hire,
through the entire hire.
Maybe they're doing reference checks, and maybe it's for a reference that you provided, but you're controlling who those references are. So they're not checking past employers, they're not checking your credentials.
And the only time they're doing that is actually after a new hire will consent to a background check. So at no point through the hiring funnel does any of that occur. So you've got this the fact that all these, this massive population of people is just being dishonest. I contribute that to, people are dishonest by nature. Some people are. But also the systems that are in place today make it really easy for people to be dishonest because there's no real mechanism to verify those assertions. So you got the dishonesty within a lack of an accountability system or infrastructure. Then you've got a $7 billion diploma mill industry that's just churning out fake shit every year, growing it anywhere from.
So that's an underground business where
a $7 billion underground business.
Wow.
Yeah, that's growing about 12% a year. It's everywhere.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Forbes did a piece on it earlier this year about there was this massive scandal that happened with a bunch of these diploma mills churning out nursing degrees. And all these, and these are
nursing
degrees, the people that are taking care of our health and well-being. Yeah, just wild. But again, there's the lack of, I mean, the fact that academic institutions are still, leveraging paper documentation.
Yeah. I mean, they're not part
in
of
the
the
digital
solution.
economy. They're not part of the solution at all yet. So you got that piece, and then you have, to your point earlier about, when somebody applies to a job, there's no fact checking, there's no verification, there's no authentication of any of the assertions that somebody may make. You go to, I don't know the last time you guys applied for a job, but you go to a career site, I don't care if it's Workday, SuccessFactors, Oracle's HCM Cloud, or something small like Greenhouse. You could apply with a resume, right? You upload the resume, but you still have to end up filling out all the fields anyway, which is a pain in the ass. There's so many posts about that online and memes. It's incredible. Or you hit the apply with LinkedIn button, but people are lying about their information anyway. Last year, LinkedIn actually partnered with the FBI and removed something like 30 or 40 million accounts due to fake and fraudulent credentials. They were just on 60 Minutes 3 weeks ago. It's a great segment. I'm an old man. So you got the apply with LinkedIn button, but that's actually not validating any assertions either. So you bring a candidate through this 35 to 45 day hiring process, really on their word. They're talking to recruiters, coordinators, managers, associates, VPs, whatever it is, costing a company time, money, and resources to run a hiring process, only to then at the end of the line, right at the end of a hiring process, once you identify your candidate, issue them an offer, and they accept, only then do they say, all right, now we're going to see if you're full of crap or not. Which, yeah, that's kind of always been the process. And this isn't new, right? People have always been lying. That's why there are background checks. But here's the crux of it. On average, background checks and pre-employment screens are taking up to 21 business days to conduct. Yeah. And if we're in tune with anything that's happening in the labor market right now, companies need butts and seats now, not 21 business days later. So if you aggregate the fact that 50 million Americans, 30% of the U.S. workforce, is changing jobs every year, with up to a 21-day delay in hiring someone, that's costing businesses $250 billion every single year in lost productivity. It's just wild.
And that's just lost productivity. If they hire the person without waiting for the background check to be completed, they're bringing in someone who's maybe fraudulent.
Right. They have, yeah.
There's even more liability or risk that could be introduced.
100%. 100%. So I'm creating Reservoir as this new common framework that says, look, at the moment somebody earns a degree, a license, a certification, gets hired from a job, whatever it may be, our life's work should be within our control. So we should be issued digital credentials that is the summary of our life's work, so that when I'm applying for a job, I can actually hit, instead of apply with LinkedIn, apply with Reservoir, which will verify not only my education, but my prior employment, the roles within that employment, the years or months I've had that employment. We want to provide organizations the capability to, right at the top of the funnel, verify everything about a candidate. So, like I said, everything from education to prior employment.
Right? Instantly, basically.
Instantly, yeah. Because we are the custodian, the individual's the custodian of this information, because it's been kind of published to us by these entities, by the employers, by the academic institutions. So now the power dynamic shifts. That information, that data is no longer gate-kept by the brokers and aggregators. We're now the ownership of that data, which, as an aside, goes in line with everything that's been happening around data governance and security over the last 15 years. You had, GDPR came out, what was that, 8-10 years ago in Europe. California did their own thing. There's legislation advancing out of committee in Washington that says, look, these data brokers need to be under more regulation and scrutiny because they gatekeep this data and because it's kept away from consumers and they have no control of it. Did you ever try to get a bad inquiry off your credit report? Forget it. You just can't do it. And it's terrible. So, you've got these brokers that are just outrageous, these data brokers. So we want to disrupt them. We want to kick them the hell out and say there's a better, faster way, a mechanism that's built for a digital economy, not for an old, archaic industrial era. And that's what Reservoir is going to do. That's the problem we're going to solve.
I love it. And I think I think it resonates a lot with people too, because in the physical world, we own things, right? You get the diploma that you're holding, right? Or you get the car that you bought, or you get whatever it is, right? We're used to owning physical things. And I think blockchain has introduced the concept of true ownership of digital wares. Now, whether that's the right technology or the right platform, it doesn't matter. The idea is still cemented of, I want to own my data.
Yeah, that's how the whole concept came to be of like, look, it's the concept of just ownership, right? And so I had the pain of lack of ownership when I was applying to business school, and then when I got there and was workshopping this concept, that gave me the idea of ownership. Now, to your point, whether or not that's the core infrastructure of what the technology is built on or what Reservoir is built on is a whole nother story, but certainly the concept is still the same.
Yeah, and the unique thing that I think Reservoir is doing in terms of its approach, it's not trying to take one aspect of it, of just kind of doing digital license creation or credentialing. It's kind of bringing together all the different parties of the ecosystem. So you bring in the person who got the credential, right? The person who went to school or worked at that past company and wants to have that verified that, yes, I worked at Google. I'm not lying about that. I actually did. I wasn't some intern in the closet. Like, I actually was doing this role or doing this work. And then also, oh yeah, I went to business school and here's the credentials for that. So you're bringing that consumer side, which is great. I want to own my data. That's great for me. But then you're also bringing the person who needs to confirm that. And then you're also bringing in the issuer. And it's through the trifecta of all three that really creates the value for all three parties by bringing them all together and having something that, hey, I can trust this and I can instantly check this. Yes. And it's just all in one place.
Yeah, we want to be the plumbing for all of that, all the core infrastructure that sits below that.
Talk to me a little bit about it from the perspective of the issuer. Like, what do you think? I'm sure you've spoken to many institutions at this point. Like, what's their perspective on this type of technology? Are they excited about it? Is this something that they feel is beneficial to them, or could this be impactful in a negative way to the way that they're charging fees right now or how they're doing verification? Like, what's the mentality there?
Yeah, so higher education is in a really unique spot, and this is kind of another thing that fed into the concept of higher education has like two massive problems right now. Certainly the diploma mill thing we spoke about, that it's actually coming right at the integrity of the institution. Academic institutions can't keep playing defense. They need to go on offense against this. They need to go on offense because this trend is coming at the very legacy of education, of the integrity of academic institutions. Period. Yeah. The whole business model will be at stake.
Totally.
Why do I need to spend money on education when I can just lie?
Totally.
Period. So they're facing that challenge. But then there's a whole other element that is starting to resonate with our early clients and the folks that we're talking to, is that there's really two ways that academic institutions make money. One is through tuition, and the other is through advancement and donations. There's only so much money that an institution can make through tuition.
Yeah, and that more students or you raise prices. Like, those are the only two.
Right. And you can't really like increase your enrollment because you're capped from just how many seats you have in a classroom.
Plus you devalue the
Plus you devalue it, which isn't good for rankings anyway. But then also you've got this, kind of trend right now within Gen Z that's, hey, I follow Gary Vee. I don't need to go to college. I can learn stuff on YouTube and TikTok and all these other non-conventional things, which are great, which are fantastic. But Gen Z is like rethinking, do I need to go get a degree? On top of the student loans and the prices and all this other nonsense, like they can't keep increasing, or they have to really be mindful of how much they increase tuition. So they're kind of capped there in terms of raising revenue. The only other mechanism is through advancement. Well, how do academic institutions raise money through advancement? It's by contacting alums. They struggle to get good data on their alums.
Yep.
They think about just like in a nutshell how this happens. So when I spoke to people who work in advancement departments, they say, look, every year we go through this cycle of just updating our directory. We use the United States Postal Service to verify addresses. That takes anywhere from, 1 to 8 months and, maybe up to $1 million, maybe more. We pay offshore resources to scrape Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram to just figure out where people are living, where people are working, etc. At best, that's like 30% accurate.
Cyber stalking, we've all come to say,
Yeah.
this is as an institution.
Yeah, 100%. It's incredibly inaccurate, and it's way too expensive to do it. And on top of that, by the time we get through the end of the list, it's the new year, and we just got to keep going through because so many people are just changing jobs now or moving now. We've become a society of just pure mobility. Nobody's working at Boeing anymore for 35 years and staying in the same, 3-bedroom home. It's just not going to happen. So these teams really struggle to just get the fundamental information. Where are you living? Where are you working? And like, how quickly are you advancing in your career? And they spend millions of dollars on getting this information every year, and they suck at it. So what we are trying to do is really not only create this this new mechanism to authenticate and verify people, but once we have this repository of data that is accurate, complete, verified, and up to date, that can now be, assuming that the individual consents, that can now be, given back to a university and say, you want self-reported data. Today it's less than 10%. I can actually give you near or at 100% self-reported data from the students who consent to do so. It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer for the fundraising efforts.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, the thing my mind immediately goes to is like, why are there no other solutions for this? Or like, what other solutions exist? What are other people trying to do? I'm sure you've researched that.
I mean, there's other firms today that are offering a version of digital diplomas. Credly's a big one. Credly, from my research, they focus a lot on like the certificate-based activities. You go up to MIT for a weekend, here's your certificate, or things of that nature, but nothing around an actual diploma, which is something separate. There's some other firms as well. What I've noticed is that, I haven't seen them accepted anywhere. Yeah. I've never applied to one job where they said, attach your Credly, thing. I haven't, when I applied to school, they weren't like, hey, we take the accreditable diploma. I don't see it anywhere in the world where it could be used to transact. There's no utility to it. We want to wrap utility around this credential and actually create an ecosystem where, the same way we can transact with different merchants with our credit cards, I want to do the same thing. Just not only, we're talking about a lot around the hiring process right now, but there's so many other places that we want to be able to allow people to transact. So, for example, you and I could walk down the street right now to a Hertz and say, yeah, I'm a Deloitte employee, the code's DTC. We're gonna get anywhere from 20 to 35% off a rental. Sometimes they may ask, but most often they don't. They say, yeah, no problem. You got the code? Yeah, here's the code. I found it on Reddit. Done. Yeah. We can go to Walnut Street, go to Apple, and we say, hey, I'm a student. I want the education discount. Oh, all right, $300 off a Mac. Or if somebody gives you a hard time there, then you just go on apple.com/education and you say, I'm a student, and you get a couple $100 off a Mac. You might even get an iTunes gift card. So we want to also have the ability to break into different merchants and vendors and commerce solutions to say, look, if you're right now shopping on Lululemon, right, and they're offering a student discount, well, if your Reservoir credential is attached or integrated with your profile, you automatically are getting your discount. You might even see it cheaper, at the SKU level, not necessarily at the end of the cart. So I want to wrap a massive ecosystem around this that I think will allow us to really scale up as quickly as possible.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's a. I think to your question, why is no one else doing it? I mean, it's a tough problem, right? Because it's an ecosystem play, but the amount of value that you can create for every single party in that ecosystem, it's all there from day one. but B, you get compound effect of the more employers that you bring on board, the more consumers you bring on board, the more people who are checking, like the value just becomes exponentially larger. And you talk about the abuse of student discounts. I've done it before. When I was
Guilty?
recently out of college, so not recent, but
Hey, I was recently out of college this summer when I rented a car in Boston, and I used somebody's delay code. I'm sorry, I didn't have a paycheck. Bill off my back. But
I mean, like that alone is probably such a massive revenue loss for every single corporation.
It's coming right into margin.
Track it. They have no idea how to track it. Right?
There's no mechanism to track it. There's no infrastructure. Even if they wanted to implement it, how could they do it? There's no way that there's going to be an API call between the HR system at Deloitte, plug it into the commerce system of Hertz or any other merchant. There needs to be
it's cheaper for them to just like assume that a percentage abuse the system and just like let it go rather than, because there's no way they can actually check or not easily.
So we want to be the conduit between that. Yeah, it's a hard problem, but you know what? Going back to what we said before, you gotta be relentless and just like you gotta be a little bit crazy. You gotta be like you gotta be a little bit nuts to think that like some kid raised by a single mom in Philly who only went to school till like either the 8th or 9th grade, was a hairdresser who then raised 3 boys by herself, one of which who battled cancer, and found their way through life to figure it out, is now gonna fucking change the world and bring efficiency and solve hundreds of $billion problems for companies and make an impact. Probably not, but also maybe maybe you gotta be nuts, or you gotta be so confident in yourself and your abilities and your vision and relentless in that pursuit that like you might just make it.
There's a quote that I love, and I'm probably gonna butcher it a little bit. I think it's George Bernard Shaw, but it's the reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable man expects the world to adapt to him. Therefore, all progress is dependent upon the unreasonable man. But basically, again, you need to be unreasonable. You need to be a little nuts to actually think that you can change the world, because it is a little nuts to think you can change the world. But it's only the people who are a little nuts and do actually try that have any shot of maybe doing it. And maybe fail, right? Maybe fail, but why not try? Right?
Why not try? It's funny you say that of like, or we're transitioning to this idea of like, being bold, being aggressive, being confident or crazy, whatever.
I call it the dangerous man.
The dangerous man. Hell yeah.
Or woman. Dangerous man or woman.
Yeah. Look, all walks of life, right, can be machines and make an impact. The one thing that like I'm in the process of trying to figure out is like, what is the balance between, if there is one, of like, how do you be that like bold, confident, not arrogant, but maybe a little arrogant, just like wildly confident person that says like, hey, I'm gonna change the world and that piece, but not come off like a douchebag.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because there also is like there's a humility to this too, that I don't think it's frankly talked a lot about in the startup community. The amount of times I've seen, people raise their rounds and like go on LinkedIn and be like, oh, to the moon. To what fucking moon? Excuse my language. Are you going to right now? Because like, it's over glamorized.
The
right?
process humbles you. I mean, like in year one when we first started, right? The concept I always talk about is this dangerous man, and like you come from, I think, a pretty similar background actually to myself. But like when you have nothing to lose, you're dangerous. You're not afraid to take risks. You're not afraid to do these things. I mean, growing up for me, like I had nothing. So like for me, everything was about, not being afraid to lose anything, or knowing that you can earn it back. And that was the concept that I think in the early days of Matter, we really brought to the table, like firing our largest clients because it wasn't working right and taking these big risks. But I think as you go through the process, the challenge becomes that it'll humble you.
Yeah.
And it'll really make you realize how much you don't actually know. It'll really start to then challenge you to think, I start to get imposter syndrome or start to have these other components come in of like losing my confidence. And where is confidence and ego, where do they meet? And how do you present that? And what do other people think about you? The funniest thing, which, we can sit here and talk about it, it's much harder to do in practice, but the reality of the truth is like, you can't give a fuck what anybody else thinks about you. And that's like one of the hardest things that I face to try to overcome. But like the truth is like, that's really the only way you can do this, because having that ability to balance your confidence, balance your ego, not care about what everybody else thinks, be a little bit fucking crazy, I think it's the most important part of all this.
I think the other thing to layer in too is that we're talking about maybe the ideals that you should have, or how you should, maybe not caring what other people think. But then there's also like the reality of where you are. And so it's not that you have to be that way, is that you should strive to develop that skill set, or strive to care less about what other people say, because you're never going to perfectly have that balance of like confidence, competence, like being a little brash, but also being humble. It's a moving target, but to have an idea of who you want to be in the world and to strive to be
that's
that
the
person.
Matthew McConaughey concept, right? It's like, who does he look up to? Who is he chasing? It's his self in 10 years, and he'll never achieve that.
Yeah.
But that's what he wants to be, always trying to be that man, chasing that who am I going to be in 10 years concept of it, right?
Yeah. I think to achieve that too, like there needs to be a healthy amount of like vulnerability too.
Yeah.
Because
Vulnerability and honesty with where you actually are.
yeah,
With yourself too. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the most critical component, being truthful with yourself.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to this this idea of authenticity,
Yeah.
right? I mean, conveniently this week, I think it was either Monday night or Tuesday morning, Webster's dictionary came out and said authenticity is the word of the year.
I saw that. Yeah.
And if there's one thing kind of on that element that I kind of would hope for, like my founder peers, is stop over glamorizing what we're doing, because this takes so much work and effort, and trying to launch a company, whether you're a solo founder or even a small team, is like a lonely place. And I think when it gets over glamorized, it paints like a false narrative of what's going on. And I think we should all just be instead just really honest with ourselves.
True.
And honest with others that like, yeah, this sucks.
Yeah.
You don't think I.
It's a mental game.
Yeah, it's a mental game. I mean, you don't think I'm like jealous of my buddies who
Exactly.
graduated B school and are making 225 grand a year and just like chilling and not chilling. They're doing great work, but I'm taking a different path, which is my choice and my decision and whatnot. But I think we just need to be like, instead of trying to over glamorize like to the moon and jump on the rocket ship and all this stuff, it's like, how many things need to go right for a rocket to reach space, let alone the moon? How many decisions go into that? And how much work and effort and materials and focus and dedication and precision that when we come out the gate, I just closed my round. And I saw this thing last week, this guy's like, I closed my round in 3 days of like $5.5 million. I'm like, dude, maybe you did, and good for you. That's fantastic. I wish you nothing but the best. As a fellow founder, I wish you nothing but the best. But like, hey man, there's other people out there that are on a different path or a different journey. So when you kind of like flex like that, I don't know what you're trying to do, but it's not resonating with me. And I don't know, is that going to resonate with your clients?
Yeah.
Is that going to resonate? Like, who are you trying to capture?
Yeah.
And if we're going to try and actually be a more authentic world, aside from like, hey, don't lie on your resume, don't lie on LinkedIn, and use Reservoir, put that aside for a minute and just like, how can we just be like more authentic human beings that are just like true to ourselves, true to others? Like, I think we just need to stop like flexing and peacocking or whatever the freaking term is. That just like, can we just all be like,
dude, it's
be human?
integrity.
Can we be human for a minute?
integrity. Like to me, like having a daughter, having my first kid, like really changed everything for me. It reshaped the whole perspective of everything. It's like this concept of integrity, being who you want to be all the fucking time. Not when you're just at work, not when you're just over here with these friends. Like who the fuck are you
online?
Like that's integrity.
Yeah.
And like, you know, big reason why I was excited about the podcast is just like, could you imagine having other people who are going through their journey maybe a little bit earlier in their phases, being able to see the conversations we have, like see what we're doing, like understand the realities behind this and how much of this is a mind game. Like you cannot scale any business if you can't scale yourself. You cannot scale any business if you can't scale yourself. And like being able to control the mind is the most critical component about all this. And the reality is like all of us are struggling to do that. I mean, that's what we wake up and try to do every fucking day. But
aside from, you know, what the hell else is going on in the world, we're trying to create something.
Yeah.
And you know, everyone's got, you know, life issues, family issues, health issues, mental health issues, societal issues, economic issues. You know, it's a lot going on, and you know, kind of goes back to the integrity, the vulnerability, whatever it is, of like, hey, you know, something I've been doing now is, you know, I've been like any other person trying to launch a company. I've been working just a ton, but something that I've been doing aside from, you know, eating well and, you know, exercising for my mind is, if I wake up on like a Tuesday and I'm just fucking dead, I'm taking the day.
Yeah.
I'm leaving my phone at home. I was saying this earlier. I'll go for like a 3 or 4 hour walk. I just like smell air. I like walk around New York. It sounds corny, but I get like inspired by like the, you know, buildings, the atmosphere, the hustle, seeing people like, you know, rush to work. You see the you know, the coffee cart guy slinging the same Danish for 45 years. Like that shit motivates me. Yeah. You know, or if I walk around at night and you look up at the building, you see people still working at like 11:30 at night on a Wednesday when they have a family home. It's like, if that doesn't energize you or make you want to run through like a wall the next day, then like this isn't your line of work.
It's infectious, and to be honest about when you need time and when your batteries are low, and then taking what you need out of the world. And for some people, it's sitting in the woods for 3 hours. For some people, it's walking around New York for 3 hours.
Like 8.
I also live right next to Chinatown now, so like I'll just peel off and like grab some dumplings late night.
Yeah. I mean, it's good. You know, I struggle with anxiety most of my adult life, and I've come to a point at this point in my life that I start to actually realize. You know, I've heard a couple of doctors and folks talk about it that I follow, that anxiety is actually a good thing. It means that it wants to, your body is telling you, you're telling yourself that you want to push yourself to do more. And there's a healthy level of like being able to take this anxiety and turn it into action. And I think, you know, the unfortunate thing is there's a very high level of, you know, association between high achievers and anxiety, right? And I think, you know, for me, it's hard to find that balance of being able to reset. And you talked about something, I don't even, you know, you talked about kind of what you try to do to help balance and manage it, but you also talked about the other component of like going to the gym, eating right. That's discipline. And discipline with the body is the number one thing you need to control the mind. And I think so many people miss it. Like we hear people talk about this concept of you have to work out every day, you have to do it. It's so fucking true. And I'm like sitting here talking about it, and I try my best to do it, but we're all like guilty of not being as disciplined as we can be. But in order to control the mind, you have to have discipline. Yeah. And so like, if I give any advice to any entrepreneurs that I work with, that's like the number one thing I tell them. Like this whole thing is about controlling the mind. It's about your ability to control your mind. And it starts with discipline. And the best way that you establish discipline for the mind is through the body, you know, and that's working out, eating healthy, getting good sleep, you know, feeding your mind with shit that's not toxic, not comparing yourself to your peers. Like all of that shit is discipline. Yeah. And when you wake up and you have a structured schedule of discipline, it just starts by stacking the wins. Like the little wins every day. Don't fucking snooze your alarm clock. Get up. Boom. That's your first win. Your mind starts to feed off that shit.
Make the bed.
Right away. Make the bed, right? I don't fucking make my bed, but it's just
you don't make your bed?
I don't make my bed.
Stack those disciplines.
You know,
that's number 2 for me.
I got babies and dogs and wives.
All right, you gotta pass.
By the time
I live alone in the studio. I got no excuse.
Yeah. But you know, it's how you stack those little wins every day, man. Just stack the little shit, builds up. If your mind doesn't trust you, your own mind, you tell yourself you're gonna go to the gym tomorrow, you don't go to the fucking gym tomorrow, then you do it again and again and again. If your own mind isn't going to trust you, your mind's not going to trust you if you never go to the gym. Who the fuck else is going to trust you? How can you even trust yourself? So, you know, like that's the whole concept that I think has been really powerful for me
in the last 2 years of my journey is starting to figure that out, you know?
Yeah.
Gents, I feel like we could probably sit here for another 6 hours and keep going on life, but unfortunately we do have to wrap up.
Yeah, no problem.
James, if people want to follow Reservoir, check you out, connect with you, maybe advice on fundraising too. We didn't get to go into that, but we have
Yeah, we can definitely have
Yeah.
a subsequent podcast. I feel
Absolutely.
like we definitely have a lot to talk about. So you can find us at checkreservoir.com. I believe our Instagram handle and Twitter handle are at checkreservoir or check_reservoir. And come aboard, follow our journey. And, we're hoping to, make some real change and make some real impact.
Perfect. And if they want to connect with you personally, LinkedIn, email,
Yeah,
Facebook, what's
reach
best?
out to me on LinkedIn. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. Send me an email or whatever. Or I think that's probably the best way to do it.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thanks,
guys.
Jason.
Yeah, of course.
It's cool, man.